Emotions derives from the Latin "emovere", to shake, displace, or agitate. Affect, 14th century, from the Latin affectious, of completed action, and feeling, Old English "felan", to touch, from the Latin palma, which denotes the handling of objects. Each of these terms is directly rooted in the dynamic interactions that transpire between entities or the potential for change that exists because of their attitudinal, postural, dispositional relation toward one another. Stated differently, to emote literally means to move, touch, or prepare for action. Many emotion-related behaviors can be categorized as approach appetitive, aimed at increasingly favorable input, or avoidant withdrawal, directed at minimizing unfavorable input. In one of the first psychological investigations to study approach and avoidant processes in the form of physical movements, Cacioppo, Priester, and Bernstein tendered the motor processes hypothesis, proposing that certain types of non-facial motor biases or their sensory consequences may subtly influence a person's attitude, such that the attitude would have different manifestations had the motor component been absent. Specifically, these researchers suggested that over the course of one's lifetime, arm flexion and arm extension become conditionally associated with approach and avoidance-related motivations, respectively, by virtue of their repeated pairing with specific somatic reactions and affective evaluations. Flexion, according to this account, is most often associated with the retrieval or ingestion of something desired or the positively reinforcing termination of aversive stimulation. In contrast, at least in many unpleasant encounters, extension is temporarily coupled with the onset of an unconditioned aversive stimulus, or catalyzed by the desire to evade a noxious agent from one's presence. Furthermore, in most circumstances that involve reaching toward a desired object, appetitive extension is actually performed as part of a larger motor sequence designed to ultimately enable the retrieval of that desired object via grasping and flexor contraction. Therefore, in many instances, flexion can be conceptualized as an approach-related appetitive movement and, albeit to a lesser degree, extension can be conceptualized as an avoidant rejecting maneuver. Substantial evidence has now been marshaled in support of this idea, demonstrating that flexor and extensor movements differentially modulate the categorization of positive and negative emotional words, participants' preferences toward novel pictorial and semantic stimuli, the production of liked and disliked celebrity names, and several distinct aspects of cognitive processing that systematically vary from more transparent emotional manipulations. The link between flexion, extension, and affective processing also operates in the reserve direction, such that the flexion is potentiated by positive stimuli and extension by negative stimuli. However, one additional observation of interest is that the meaning of these movements is not rigid, but rather is partially determined by the context in which you are engaged. For instance, Bergman and Brendel observed that participants were faster to move positive words toward than away from non-physical representations of themselves, regardless of whether the required arm movement entails pushing a lever away from or pulling it toward their physical bodies. That is, the specific context in which a flexor or extensor movement is initiated, for the purpose of moving oneself closer to or farther away, appears to play a key role in defining that particular action's effective motivational significance. Collectively, these experiments contribute to a growing appreciation of the situated, embodied nature of many psychological processes and provide evidence that certain non-facial motor processes or their sensory consequences can both arise from and directly influence emotional processing. Moreover, they demonstrate that the effective motivational significance of a given flexor or extensor action is determined in part by whether the action is aimed at attaining a positive outcome or avoiding a negative one, and by whether or not that action is performed in the presence of an emotional stimulus.